Hello, everybody, and welcome to a very special edition of Gemcutting Conversations. My name is Justin K. Prim. I'm going to be the host this evening. It is Valentine's Day somewhere, or maybe everywhere in the world now. Good morning, good evening, good night to everyone, wherever you are. I'm very excited about tonight's chat. I've been wanting to have Jean-Noel come and talk to us really since I started doing these webinars almost a year ago now. And I hadn't really had a good idea. I didn't want to just get him on here and be like, what do you do? How do you, what's up? I wanted to really have like a good theme. And so eventually it occurred to me like design. This is an interesting approach to the talk. So we'll see where it's going to go. But so Jean-Noel and I met virtually, must have been now 6 plus, maybe 7 years ago. We were both living in San Francisco. I had just started gem cutting. I discovered him on Instagram and I was like, oh, wow, there's a gem cutter here in San Francisco. I should, I should look him up. I should say what's up. So I message him. I'm thinking maybe I can like do an apprenticeship. Maybe I can learn, come and learn from this guy because I have no idea who's in San Francisco and what's going on. And so he gives me his number. He said, give me a call. And I'm thinking, okay, cool. It's going to happen. This is going to be awesome. I'm looking at his Instagram. I'm very impressed with his work. And then I call him up and he's like, yeah, I'm really busy. I'm not really into teaching. And I was like, oh, okay, no problem. So anyway, years and years later, we are together on Zoom on Valentine's Day. So Jean-Noel, if you are ready, come on in and we will start this Valentine's Day party. How's it going?
Good, man. How are you?
I'm doing well.
I'm looking at the list of people here looking at us.
It's early morning Valentine's Day for you. It's late night Valentine's Day for me.
Yeah, happy Valentine's Day.
Thank you. You got any good
I haven't even
plans?
said that to my wife yet. She's asleep.
You have a date planned, or is it COVID Valentine's Day in the house?
Man, we'll probably go. Let's see. It's not raining today. We'll probably go to the park, get the dogs out. Enjoy each other's company.
Yeah, that's a good way.
Sundays are usually our house cleaning day, so I don't know. We might stay that for another day. We'll see.
Postpone. I guess now that
Postpone.
more people are living in the house all the time, cleaning your house becomes a much more important priority for staying sane.
Oh, it's a regular. We had to make it like regular intervals because we both hate it. And it's good to do it together as a family because then it doesn't feel like such a chore. So we just have a day where we just handle everything. So it's nice.
That's a good idea. I
Yeah.
want to try and do that. I'll try to get the dog to help a little bit more around the house. That's my main goal.
Fucking dogs just get in the way. They're asleep still, so
Yeah.
you're gonna hear them screaming here in about 20 minutes.
Okay, it's like doggy wake up time.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so I have some things, or I have some places that I hope we're going to go, but let's kind of just, for anyone who doesn't know you, if that's even possible, because I think just guessing, I didn't look this up, but I think you might have the biggest social media following of any gem cutter in the world. Maybe, I don't know if that's true, but I think if you're not number one, you're definitely like number 1 or 2. So maybe everyone already knows who you are, but just give us a general idea. Who are you, and maybe how long have you been cutting, just so we have an idea of where we're at.
So yeah, I was talking to my wife about it. I've been cutting professionally now for 12 years. I think I was doing it as a hobby maybe for a year and a half or 2 years before that, but it was just like a stone here or there. I literally maybe was doing like a stone every month or 2.
Okay.
Because it was so fucking frustrating and time consuming in the beginning. So but yeah, I don't know. I'm a gem cutter. I don't even like calling it anything like that. So it's weird to like describe yourself. It's like fuck. I got past the area of job titles and fucking cover sheets, so it doesn't. I stopped trying to describe anything 10 years ago.
Yeah. So it's going to be an interesting job for me to try to get you to describe some things here.
Oh, we're gonna have fun, Justin.
So, well, anyway, how'd you get into it? At least at the start, are you self-taught, or did somebody show you the ropes?
So yeah, it's like a multi-aspect answer. I always bring things back to when I did body piercing when I was 15, and part of my apprenticeship was 2 years of just making the jewelry. You know, in the early 90s, there was no catalogs really to order jewelry from, so I was literally just fucking sitting at a polishing machine trying to polish stainless steel, and I got really into it, you know, and it always had like struck a chord in my head growing up, and as I got older, it sort of like waned away from that sort of stuff. And the Randall Museum in San Francisco was giving away, or not giving away, they were doing you know, they do like make a mug class, or fucking they had lost wax casting class, right? So I signed up for the lost wax casting because I had the jewelry knowledge from the body jewelry, although I had never casted anything before. It was all just fabricating from stock, essentially, right? We're just threading things and polishing. So yeah, I signed up for this class, you know, like 1 day a week or whatever. And the guy was like, I think he was homeless, really, that was living at the Randall. They kind of just gave him the studio space, but he was a like fucking wizard tinkerer, you know. And his name was Ken. I don't know, he's probably passed away now, but I don't know what happened to him. Anyway, he made everybody, before the wax casting class, he required everybody to cut and polish a cabochon first. So I don't know what his reasoning was. I don't know if it was just to get used to the machinery. I hadn't even considered working with stones. And when he had said that, I was like, well, fuck this guy, right? Like I have literally 1 day a week to work on what I wanted to work on. I signed up for the wax class, and then now here I am fucking polishing a cabochon. And I was like, this is retarded. But 6 weeks into that, I was like, wow, this is really interesting. I had never really even considered how to move stone around in that sort of way. You know what I mean? I was familiar with it with metal and how metal reacts to the grinding and polishing and that sort of thing. But then when we started working on the stones, it was a totally different thing. And it just got me thinking about, oh shit, what about those little sparkly faceted stones? You know, I didn't even know they were faceted stones, or that's what they were called. So I asked Ken, I told me, I said, do you teach this too? And he goes, no, I don't teach it. So I just started reading, and then I bought my first machine that I bought was the little swap top from Inland Lapidary, where you can like switch it from a saw to a fucking, you know, horizontal lap to a fucking trim, you know, whatever. So I would, I don't know if anybody uses that thing, but it's so loud and messy. So my friend owns a tattoo shop in San Francisco on, it was at the time, it was on 9th and Irving, right near the park. And he would let me, they open at noon, but I would get there at 9. And I would fucking put plastic over all the drawing tables, and I would set up the inland machine, and I would just CAD, just fucking get wet, dust everywhere. I would clean up before noon, and then by the time the tattoo shop opened up, you wouldn't even know I was there, right? But I would do this in the mornings before I went to work, and I was just trying to practice how to CAD, practice how to CAD, practice how to CAD. I have a few like little hand faceted things I fucked with back then, trying to figure out like how the hell it even works. I didn't even know about a mast or anything like that. So then I found it was about 6 months of that, and then I found I forgot the exact name of the website, but Jeff Graham's website.
Yeah.
And it's actually funny because I started buying rough because I was like, oh shit, that's where you get the rough from, right? So, and the equipment's really expensive, the laps and stuff. You know, I was buying like a tin lap at the time was like $250 or something, but I was making like $10 an hour. So every 3-4 months I would save like $300 extra. I would buy like a lap, and I would buy some rough tourmalines from Jeff. I would save some more. After a few months, I'd buy another fucking lap, and I'd buy some more rough, right? And it was like almost a year of this, a year and a half to 2 years of saving, and I finally had all the equipment at my machine. But the whole time I'd been reading and just trying to figure out what's what. And my only point of reference was this website. To meet people that because I remember back in the day, I was confused about lubricate telephone number written there still. I think even now I'm learning about fine jewelry. You know, I had no idea when I started. So then I didn't have any interest in jewelry. I didn't even think about selling the fine jewelry or anything like this. I'm just working on stones because I really enjoyed the process of polishing. And when my son was born, I wasn't even thinking of it as a job, is what I'm saying. It was just a hobby. I didn't even see the potential in it. And when my son was born, it was too expensive for us to hire somebody to watch him. So I quit because my wife had the better job. And then just because I'm home all the time, I was working on my hobby nonstop, and it has slowly grown into this.
Mm.
So
So it's been quite a epic,
I don't know.
going all the way back to the. So it's weird though to me. Like, did you never knew that there was a lapidary club in San Francisco? Like when you were just starting
I
out? Did you?
No, I had no idea. I joined because I was looking for equipment to use the cab because I wanted to cab some things and I didn't have the vertical. Like I feel like you need vertical drums to do a proper cab.
Yeah.
And I did some research and somebody's like, "Oh, there's a whole machine shop of rock machines there at Outer Sunset." And I'm like, "What?" And yeah, I went and saw it, but I only went a couple of times, man. Like I'm a big like crazy person about polish and quality of like the area that you're polishing within. And when I fucking walked into that studio and I saw the
Yeah.
grit, I was like, you can't polish anything in there. So I stopped going.
Yeah. I know for me, like when I first wanted to get into it and I discovered that place, but it ended up that that was only about 3 blocks from my house because I was living in the Sunset at
Wow.
the time. So then it became awesome. I would ride my bike over there every day before I went to work. And yeah, so it's funny that
It's
we
a
were,
really, it's fucking awesome building. And yeah, it is like a really special thing. I mean, in any city to have a rock club,
yeah,
but it also in San Francisco, the size it was and the dudes that are in there, it was really a special thing.
yeah, definitely. And I mean,
Is it still open? Do you know if it's still operating?
yeah, I mean, I don't know since COVID, but they're doing well. Yeah, they did like a webinar like last month, so they're definitely trying to keep it going. The cool thing with those guys is they bought their building in like the 50s or the 60s, so like they don't even have to
Oh,
worry. If they ever wanted to sell that building, it's like such prime real estate. You know, it's like at the end of In Judah, right at the train turnaround, right at the beach. It's like
at
the
7-Eleven.
yeah, it's like the coolest neighborhood part of the Sunset. Like, wow, you guys really thought ahead. You know, when the Sunset probably was really not cool, and they got probably some dirt cheap land because it was too far away from the financial district. But now it's
Pretty
awesome.
awesome.
Yeah, they got a big building. So, okay, so you've just been growing and growing and growing. I always wondered, was there a point where you started to really snowball? Like, was there some moment that happened in your career where, because of course, like many people can grow slowly, slowly, but like to get to the number, I'm just thinking about Instagram, like to get to the numbers where you're at now, I'm always wondering, was there like some moment where it just blew up for you in terms of like people suddenly, like a bunch of people suddenly discovering you at once or something like that?
I mean, there'll be like waves of it. You know what I mean? And I'm always thankful, like when friends share stuff. I have friends that are on there that are really that have big followings as well. And like one friend, Caitlin, when she shares something, I get like fucking 200, 300 followers from one post that she does. It's like retarded. But I don't know. I keep it private. I was looking back at I had an older post, Vogue back in the day, maybe like 5 years ago, did a little fucking share about me when I was on Facebook. And at the time I was still private, but I only had 9,000 followers. But they mentioned that in the thing. So that was, I don't, it grows slowly. I've been on my wife made me get on Instagram in 2012. I didn't want to do it. And she made me sign up for it just because she was like, I think you'll really like it because it's a photo. I'm big into photography too. So it just grew. I keep that shit private. I don't know what to say. I have to approve every single one of those between like, before I made it private, I probably had maybe 5,000 followers. So that was sort of like the Wild West, unruly. I don't know who the fuck's following me. It's like maybe half of them are Pakistani tourmaline dealers. I have no idea.
Yeah.
But after that, when I made it private, I approve every single person. So every person that's following in that 40,000 almost, I've looked at every single person and just made sure in my own craziness that they're a normal
Yeah.
person.
Yeah. That's already like a lot of work right there just to deal with 40,000 interactions.
I mean, it comes slow. It's been years. You know what I mean? So like, yeah, every time I get a request, I'll look at them and just see who they are. You know what I mean? It's very personal to me, my business. It's not like I don't want to. I don't want to fucking mass broadcast it. Sometimes I get feelings like, let me just take my shit off of that and then just put it out there and let everybody see it. But I feel like keeping it sort of small and obscure and sort of unknown, it sort of helps everything out. You know what I mean? For me, it sort of
Yeah, I mean,
matches. You know what I mean?
from what I've seen when I've run into you in person, it seems like that pretty well reflects the way you like to do business, like small meetings, intimate appointments. You're not doing booths, you're not doing a website sales or anything. It's just like what stone is in your pocket right now or whatever, like
Yeah, I mean, yeah, pretty much. And it's the way I am normally without stones. You know what I mean? I have fucking like one best friend in New Jersey. I don't fucking talk to nobody. You know, I don't socialize with anybody. I really like. I I'm okay with people. You know, I'm very comfortable with people. I think because of the way I grew up. But you know, deep down, I think I'm sort of an introvert in ways where I don't like hanging out with people.
Yeah.
So, but I, you know, as I get more practice, the gym business is really a business of people and relationships. And the more I get into it, the more, you know, you start to think about, like, you asked me what I would describe myself as. Like, okay, as a colleague, bro, right? Am I faster? Am I fucking somebody who negotiates value on rough? Am I a salesman? Am I a fucking traveling salesman? Like, what am I? You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
there's a lot of things that we do to make up what we are. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying?
Yeah.
So yeah, I don't know. I think I try to think about that all the time, and um, I really enjoy the relationships that the stones bring and the conversations that it brings up. It's one of those sort of vessels that allows people to like let their guard down for a
Yeah.
minute.
And it's a really
Sometimes.
yeah, it's a really unique place that we're in I mean, our industry specifically, because people are so intimately involved with each other, whether it just means making a sale because you need to like sit down and have a tea first and, you know, become comfortable before you can do business or whatever. It's, you
All
know,
of it. Like, I don't give a shit. You know, I don't give a shit if you're gonna buy the stone from me just for the value of it. I'd rather give the stone to a friend that's fucking friendlier than you just asking me a bunch of dumbass questions about whatever it is that you think is valuable. You know what I mean? That's what I've learned about gemstones is you cannot force somebody to buy it. There's nothing I can tell you, even if you like the stone. There's nothing I can tell you that's going to change your mind on anything. So I don't fucking describe anything, right? The only people that need to know anything about the gem is the person that's buying it, that's really into it. You know what I mean? Then I'll go into detail about things with that person. But
yeah,
if you're just looking, perusing on Instagram, there's no need for anybody to know anything about anything.
yeah,
You know what I mean?
yeah,
It's just there for eye candy.
yeah. Well, I know, I think having a
I
slightly,
want to say what's up. I see my friend Marvin up here from Kenya. I haven't seen him since I was there in like 2015 or something. So what's up? Marvin Wamba. What's his Instagram name? You know his Instagram name?
not off the
Fuck
top.
is it? It's like, I gotta think about it. He's a kid. He's in Kenya. He's a gem cutter there. He's really amazing. I wanted to blow him up.
Okay.
I'll think about it.
I know
Anyway,
having a slightly introverted streak is probably not a bad thing for a gem cutter. It definitely helps you stay focused, I think. I've got one friend in England, and she told me before, like, she has a theory that all gem cutters are slightly autistic. You know, like there's no way you can sit down and just stare at a pattern for, you know, 6 to 12 hours and just keep working on it without some kind of, you know, strange brain.
you know, somebody that says that, they don't understand what's happening when you're sitting there. You know what I mean? There's so many things that you're paying attention to. It's like it's perfect for somebody with. I mean, you saw me when before we turned this on. I was like walking back and forth around my house, like, can't fucking sit down.
Yeah,
That's why I dropped out of school because I couldn't sit fucking down still,
yeah, yeah,
and I got in trouble all the time. Right? The gem cutting is such a complex thing that you're looking at and trying to figure out if you're into it that way. You know what I mean? Like I have people ask me what kind of machine I'm using when I'm cutting. It's like you can do the same thing with different machines, right? If I'm seasoning and conditioning my laps properly,
yeah,
you know what I mean? There's other things that are happening. So when somebody says, "Oh, you know, you got to be sort of autistic to just sit in one spot for 8 or 10 hours," you have no fucking idea about what we're looking at sitting there. You know what
yeah,
I mean? You're sitting still, but you're traveling the universe at the same time.
yeah,
You know what I mean?
yeah,
It's
yeah,
like,
yeah. I mean, it's cathartic, it's meditative, it's sort of holistic, and but not for everybody. Because as a teacher, I've definitely seen some people it's not for them. I've had just a few people that have come through my class, and it's like you should do something else. This isn't, you're not going to be able to, you know what I mean? Like you're, you know what I mean? People who are salespeople, people that are super social, want to move around all the time, like, and can't focus or whatever. They don't like to focus or they don't want to get meticulous with their hands. It's like, I don't think this is going to work for you, you know, and I get to sit with them for a couple of weeks and see if I'm right. I don't tell them that, of course, I don't tell them that, but I just watch them. And every once in a while you
mm.
do see that person, you're like, how did you get here? You've missed,
What are you doing here?
you know, but it's, you know, whatever. It's a good challenge. I mean, you know, as an adult learning how to do a new skill, it's funny to, you know, watch people go through their mental hoops and checks and you know, like you don't really experience failure that much as an adult, especially with someone mentoring you. So it's a unique experience to see people fail. And I think as a, you
Talk
know,
about fucking failure. I mean, you know, in the gym business has humbled me 1,000-fold. You know, I mean, imagine spending 5 figures on a parcel and putting it away for fucking 2.5, 3 years, and then looking at it and realizing that 3/4 of it's bullshit. You know, or something like, you know, right? Like that's
yeah,
really a humbling experience. Like
yeah,
talking about education as an adult. You know,
yeah.
when hearing you say that, I think back when I first got my first machine, right? After I had been saving everything for 2 years, remember? I've been buying small bits of equipment. I finally had it all in one bit, and I just fucking hit it. I'd be there literally for 10 hours, 16 hours, not saying a word to anybody. And I remember just it would cause arguments and fights and stress because it was just so fucking frustrating. And it wasn't because I wanted to sit there and figure it out, it's because I couldn't make anything happen the way I wanted it to happen. I remember those days still, you know, and even get like anxieties before I start on stones, especially newer stones. I still get anxieties before I get going, where it's like, fuck, man, it's going to be a hurdle. You know, I still have that feeling, but I think it's good to have it because I'm not like, oh, I know what's going to happen. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I'm not like super comfortable with it yet, but as soon as I start working though, and then I start relaxing about it. You know, when you see things start working out, that's the thing about stone cutting is you don't see results until you're done. Really, you know
Yeah.
what I mean? It's one of those things like you have to go through all these stages to see if everything's working. So it's taken a lot, like for somebody who's impatient like myself, just to polish a half of a stone and put it down for another day is like that took a lot of practice, you know, with you know what I mean, with psychology for me.
Yeah.
But it, you know, in the end, it's better. It's taught me like how to be patient and sort of let shit sit and let it work out. You know what I mean?
Yeah. But then that moment when you actually take it out of, you know, you've done both sides and you take it out of the acetone or whatever for the first time and you wipe it off and you're like the first human being to ever see what the stone had inside of it. And you're just like, hopefully you're like, oh man, I did
Yeah.
it.
I was gonna say hopefully, yeah, but sometimes you're like, oh fuck.
Yeah. Yeah. Sometimes it doesn't
You know
come out.
what though? Like I don't get upset anymore when things don't work out the way I want them to. We have to figure that we have a broader frame of reference than everybody else looking at it, and everybody has a different idea about what looks nice. So even stones that I've like been so bummed about, whether it be too dark or whatever, have almost always have found a person that's been like, man, that's fucking awesome stuff. Like I want that stuff. You know what
Yeah.
I mean?
Do
So
you do you
there's
ever,
always something for everybody.
yeah. Have you ever pulled it out and looked at it and been like, I got to do it again? Or have you ever recut your own stone like because you weren't happy with it?
Yeah, I actually I'm fucking with a phenocite now. I'm thinking about it. Early on, when I first started cutting, one of my first like dozen stones was an engagement stone from my wife's friend at the zoo, and it was a phenocite. So when I bought the rough, at the time it was super cheap. I took a big crystal and I cut a little nub off of it, and I made her a little 2 carat stone. And then I cut the other chunk into a 9 carat thing that was it was a GemCAD design. It was one of Jeff Graham's designs. So maybe like 5 years ago, I was like, it's not really indicative of what I like. So I recut it down into a 7.5 carat stone. But I look at it now and I'm like, I didn't fucking know what I was doing. So I want to go at it again with this stone. But it's like, at some point, when is it okay to let ego just fucking butcher nature? You know what I mean? Like, should I just leave the stone alone and wait for somebody that's gonna like it, or should I? You know, it fucks with me in those ways. Like I've already fucked this crystal,
Two
you know,
times.
the first time by not knowing what the fuck I was doing, and then the second time by not knowing what the fuck I was doing. And now the third time I want to go at it. Like, am I doing the right thing now? I don't know.
Yeah.
You know, so yeah, I don't know. So I try not to. I try not to.
Yeah.
Try to get it right the first time, and that's what I was going back to what I was saying about taking your time and letting things play out at their own accord. You know, instead of trying to force shit. Even like when I'm preforming or looking at rough or something, I try not to like rush into them. You know, I
Yeah.
leave them.
Yeah, and you're not the first person I've heard say that. I mean, really, some of the better cutters and the really experienced cutters that I met in Europe have said the same kind of thing to me. Like, especially working with high-end stones like sapphires and emeralds, it's like sometimes we just sit and look at them for a couple of days, and almost like we're speaking to them, we're listening to them, we're looking and seeing what's in there, and
And
just
that's yeah, it's like a hippie. That's like a hippie way of saying it. But like in reality, you fucking pick that thing up 150 times, and maybe the 149th time you look at it, you're like, oh shit, what's that? You
yeah,
know what I mean? You're always going to see something different in the stone. Sometimes I see proportionally different.
Yeah.
Whereas like I'm gonna approach the fucking thing completely different than what I was thinking.
Yeah. I
You
mean,
know what
yeah.
I mean? The thing's not talking to you really. You know what I mean? As a material, yeah. You know, I understand what's gonna happen because I'm going through the process in my head, my
Yeah.
process.
Yeah.
You know
Yeah.
what
I
I
mean,
mean?
it,
So
it
when you look at
sounds like a hippie thing, but then when I see this French dude in Paris with like a white lab coat and he's, you know what I mean? He's like got a hand cranked jam peg and he's saying that. I'm just like, oh, okay. Well, it's not just California. It's like the whole world is a bit weird.
You're talking about Seb?
No, no, no. This old guy, Manuel Soiree, he's like the best emerald cutter in Paris, and he's just like, you know, he'll get into the philosophy if you give him the time to do it. And I, you know, just some of the stuff he told me, I was like, wow, this dude's like poetic. He's telling me poetry right now, but I can't even believe it because he's like an old guy. You know, he's like an old French guy. I don't know why. It does actually
No,
make
it's
sense.
cool. You know the thing about the French that one of my observations, I guess, is that they're very keen on the proper process of how to do something.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Whether it be written, like if like croissants for some reason, for instance, like you can get the same fucking type of croissant everywhere in Paris because there's one way to make croissant, right?
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
that mentality. And with gem cutting, it's sort of like commercially. Hey, look, commercially you see that. I'm gonna put Eva on the
She's like sleepy.
commercially you see that mindset. Like there's only one way to cut a square, or there's only one way to fucking work a tourmaline rough or whatever. You know, it's sort of like a rigid. I feel like you miss some things. You know what I mean? So with gem cutting, it's interesting to me because I feel like you can't have that mindset, but maybe you do, and you don't give a shit about the material. You're only caring about the perfection of the cut.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
So
So I
then,
don't know.
yeah. I mean, that's kind of where I want to go. Like, let's talk about approach a little bit. You know, one of the things that I have really appreciated from really watching you via Instagram over like the last 7 years that I've known you is to see how your style has really turned into something very identifiable and unique. And other than concave cutters and fantasy cutters, where you know a lot of times like Dalen Hargrave, you can always tell a Dalen Hargrave. You don't have to see who did it, right? But usually with
Right.
faceted stones, it's not. I don't think it's so easy to see the author in the stone. You know, a lot of American cutters or Western cutters, whatever, they cut nice stones, but you know whether they're doing diagrams or their own thing, it's like it just looks like a certain aesthetic of stone. But when I look at your work, and the more I get to know you, the more I understand your work, I think, but it doesn't exactly look like anybody else's. And I'm not just talking about open culettes, but like just the way that you let the stone breathe and you let the stone kind of just be its thing, right? You're letting the color out sort of slowly, or I don't know. I'm just saying how I feel about it when I see it.
Yeah, no, I appreciate it. It's nice to hear.
But I just wonder, like, how, because you spoke already about using a Jeff Graham diagram, so we kind of have an idea about where you started, right? Like you started where we all started, you know, downloading some
Mm-hmm.
diagrams, figuring out how to do it, what is index, what is angle, everything like that. But then to move forward until now or whenever, you've obviously developed a specific approach and a specific sort of philosophy towards looking at the rough and trying to understand the stone. So how does it work for you? Like if you get a new rough stone, how do you go about deciding how you're going to mess with it?
Let's say hi. Oh, hi.
It's wake up time for the dogs.
Yeah, they're being good and quiet. Yeah, we talked a little bit before we got on here, you and I had mentioned this piece of rough I bought from my friend Steve, and it wasn't like, you know, when we talk about tourmalines, sometimes they come in like these nodules. They look like little UFO discs or something, right? Mm-hmm. Nigerians call it idan doki, which means horse balls. That was funny. But yeah, I bought one of these beautiful nodules, this like tourmaline. This might have been in maybe like 2009-ish. You know, I bought this 20 karat Mozambique tourmaline golden sunset nodule. You know, it was face up with a C-axis. It's like just golden orange, you know, open color, gorgeous crystal. So I'm fucking, even then I was really mindful about not only length width, but length depth. you know what I mean, ratios. When I looked at the diagrams, at that point I was already like, let me just look at the depth also aspect on everything instead of just measuring length width, because I'm fucking butchering weight. That was like, you know, so I fucking took this 20 karat tourmaline. I did my best in preforming it. My diameter was like right on, and then I finished with a 5.5 carat stone. And I'm like, man, this keeps fucking happening. Like, this is normal. You know, this is retarded. And you know, you don't pay very much for the stone, but still, I was bummed for the crystal. You know, I should have had at least a 10 or 11 or something carat stone. You know. So yeah, doing that a bunch of times. I think it all depends on what you're looking at. You know, what you were saying about having students in your class that just don't have any real interest at the process. I feel like some people look at shit differently, and then your frame of reference also has a lot to do with, you know, what you think is real or what should be, you know, the fucking critical angle on a material. Like the fucking stone is going to be set on some fucking crazy lady's hand that's going to be talking with the motherfucker, like 42 degrees, 42.28. Like, does it really matter? You know what I mean? So I start thinking of things like this, you know, and just over the years, trying different things. Now, that's the other thing is I'm not repeating the same design over and over again. I'm working each stone differently, and I'm noting what's working on each stone specifically for the species and localities, because different localities will have, I feel like, different traits. You know what I mean? Mm. And the side note of that is, I feel it's the same with diamonds, but they don't talk about that, and it's sort of a bummer. You know, I feel like I've talked to a few diamond guys who are like rough buyers, and that's a totally different breed, bro. But those guys notice things about diamonds that they don't ever talk about in the commercial market. And it's really interesting to talk about that to these guys, because it helps, you know, also like buying sapphires. There's notable differences in things, you know what I mean? So yeah, it's and anyway.
Yeah.
I feel like it all comes down to perspective, you know what I mean? So I don't know. Over the years, my perspective started changing on what I was doing, and then I stopped turning to the commercial market full of fucking salesmen trying to tell me what reference I should be using on something that they have no fucking idea about. Right?
Yeah.
I slowly started realizing that most of the industry doesn't really know what they're talking about. Yeah, you know, you start getting your own getting your own realizations, and you start proving to yourself over and over again, like, fuck this, fuck these guys.
As soon as you know a little bit about cutting and you start talking to gem dealers, and this happens to us a lot in Bangkok because we're surrounded by gem dealers, like gem dealers don't really know anything about cutting at all. Like they might not even know what any cut is. They just know the stones, or they know what they have or whatever, but they're not going to be able to give anybody a good, I mean, maybe some. I'm not going to say every gem dealer, but like generally the ones that we interact with,
true.
You know, really,
there's all types of people out there. Don't get me wrong. Like I have homies that are straight pirate, like valuers. You know what I mean? International valuers is what I like to call them. You know, you're negotiating value on things, whether you're selling a cut stone to somebody in London or whether you're buying a sapphire from somebody in Mozambique, right? We're negotiating value over something that doesn't have a rigid value system. So that is a job in itself, right? But there's all types of people that are doing that for all different reasons. You know what I mean? Like I have a homie that's that type of person, but he over the years, he's like, the industry like forced the love of it on him, just because you know, as a good salesman, he had to learn what he was selling. You know what I mean? And he slowly learned to love it.
Yeah.
It's like one of those people. There's those people out there too. So I don't know.
Yeah.
That's the beauty of it, is everybody sort of found it in their own way, you know? So a lot of fun.
No, I mean, one of the things I love about Bangkok is that we get to interact with so many international people on the daily basis. So then basically, you know, you never know how someone like wherever they're from, they're selling stones to you, how, you know, however they see it, you know, you might get a tidbit from just how they describe it or whatever they say. They might see what they have in a totally different way, you know, especially if they're very familiar with their local material, you know, like you know, it's interesting. But so is there, if we want to just think in some linear way of how did you get to this point now, as far as design aesthetics, or, you know, your vision for the stone? Because obviously Well, let me just put up a photo real quick in case people aren't familiar, because I'm sitting here staring at this cluster of your stones, so maybe people understand what I'm talking about. But obviously you have a specific aesthetic, and it can be many shapes. It can have an open culet, it can have a closed culet, it can be whatever. But you have some way that you approach the stone, and I'm just curious as to how you actually discovered that. What was the wormhole or the rabbit hole to get you down to where you're at now, or up to where you're at now, I guess maybe.
There wasn't one particular moment. I feel like I understand what you're asking. Like going back to every stone, I'm working on something new. Every single time I'm working, I'm learning something new about design or proportion or structure or something that I'm really into. Or I'm like, oh wow, that works really well for this sort of thing, or you know what I mean? Like every single time I'm working on a new stone. So yeah, I'm close to 1,000 individual shapes now. You know what I mean? It's like over
Yeah.
those years, I've learned what needs to go where. You know what I mean? And then also, thinking about it as like as a three-dimensional object rather than just what's happening when the light's returning back out. Like I see these ray trace images, and it's like, you fucking really think the light's only coming in from the top of the stone? It's like, it's not true. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
How the fuck is that possible? How the fuck is that possible? You have 4 ray traces coming into the stone. Like, look, there's obviously a window. No, asshole, there's light encompassing the whole shape of that fucking stone. You know what I mean? So that the stuff like that is retarded when I see that stuff in my brain.
Yeah.
Maybe it makes sense to people out there that learned about it. You know what I mean? But it just doesn't fit with what I'm doing. So over the years, I tried to make fit on the stone what was happening inside my head, or that would make sense in my brain. You know what I mean? So yeah, working on all those different shapes, I've come up with a sort of, and it changes with each species, but I've come up with process that the shape is a second intent to my process of working out the crystal to its maximum.
Mm-hmm.
And over the years, I've adjusted that to have the outcome be sort of deliberate. And I hate when fucking people call it fantasy cut. You know what I mean? Because there's a lot of deliberacy into it. And like you were saying, it's all like, I try to keep it sort of traditional in a way where it's all flat faceted.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I'm just doing my own thing where I think it looks best.
Yeah, of course. I mean, I know it's hard to try and put names on things. It's like trying to ask a painter, like a painter who pioneered a style, like why did you start doing it like that? It's just like, well, I don't know.
I know. I'm trying to give you an honest answer. You know what
Yeah,
I
yeah,
mean?
yeah,
But it really was just doing something different every time is the only way I'm learning. Like if I have this idea in my head that meat point fasting is the only way to go about it, that's all I'm going to know, and that's going to be my whole point of reference for everything.
yeah,
So I try to make my point of reference outside of the gem industry.
yeah. So when you were just getting into it, or maybe when you were just transitioning away from using diagrams and stuff, ha- were you looking at other stones, or because I'm just wondering if you had if you had much inspiration from like European style cutting, which is very not American meat point cutting.
And maybe when I look at like old cuts too, you know what I mean? But even my proportions are different than old cuts.
Yeah.
If I was doing the same proportions and angles, the stones would look the same. It's like how many different shapes can you make with 4 right angles? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So yeah, I don't know. That goes back to people only seeing certain things about the work, and applying your own frame of reference to what you're looking at.
Yeah.
But I don't reference gemstones when I'm thinking about the design of the stones.
Yeah.
I'm really looking at proportion and ratio as a whole, totality. And I'm also thinking about the species that I'm working on.
Yeah. So then, is there an idea in the beginning of what the pattern's going to be about, or does the pattern purely emerge as an interaction, or as a process of your interaction with the
Yeah,
stone?
it's that the pattern. But again, over the years, because it's possible to make the pattern look like shit at the end. You know what I mean? So every single time I'm working, I'm paying very close attention at what's happening when. You know what I mean? Sort of like you have to look ahead. I'm planning my steps out as I'm going. In my brain, I'm working it out, like where everything is as
Yeah.
I'm going. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
the process is sort of formed around that sort of vibe. But yeah, I don't know.
One of the
It's interesting for me to even think about it because I don't talk to anybody about it,
yeah,
so it's like I don't really know what to say about it.
yeah.
I just
Well,
sort
I
of go at
know
it without saying too much about it.
Yeah. Well, I know last year, I feel like every time I talk to you, which is usually just in bursts, you're in Bangkok for a day, or I see you in Tucson for an hour. And usually I feel like you always tell me one thing, one random side note. And I'm just like, that was a golden nugget right there. Because I'm always, I'm curious not for anybody, for anybody's process, like as a person who's going around the world studying gem cutters from all cultures, I'm just like, anytime you see something a little bit out of the ordinary, you're just like, well, what's going on? But one of the things that you said to me last year in Tucson, you were just talking about, I think you said like, I'm very meticulous about the rough that I buy. Like I won't just buy a parcel of rough. I look at the shape of the rough and I kind of have an idea that that's going to work. And I'm not going to buy it if I think, it's not going to work. And to me, that
I
was,
mean that I try, but I can't make people sell me what I want. You know what I mean? Sometimes I have to buy the shit that I don't want, like that pear-shaped garnet I just posted recently that you had before and after shot. You put that fucker
yeah,
up there.
yeah.
That piece of rough, I didn't want that stone when I bought, and it was too expensive at the time. But the other stone I was trying to get, yeah, this was forced on me to buy. You know what I mean? Like the shape was sort of, I like the outline of it, but the heft of it was sort of the challenge.
Yeah.
So I didn't want it. And again, I forget how much the crystal weighed. The finished stone is 8 carat. So I think it was probably around 15, 16 carat.
Okay.
It's a lot of money for that fucking thing.
Yeah.
So I was trying to turn it down because I could use that money somewhere else. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I didn't have a choice because I wanted the other stone and they didn't want to keep that either. So I took it.
Okay.
But sometimes it works out. You know what I mean? Like this worked out, I think.
But yeah, from the little clues that you have, given us over Instagram over the years, especially because I just pulled this off your Instagram, occasionally you do show this sort of before and after. And if you're paying attention, or I'm paying attention, and I'm like, oh yeah, this is that same stone that you posted a couple of days ago. And I'm just like, wow, he really followed the shape. Like he didn't really, I mean, obviously this one you changed the shape a little bit because that top part's a little
Yeah, you
bit
see the
more
top.
bulky. Yeah,
Yeah.
but for the most part, you've just literally used what was there, tweaked it out a tiny, tiny bit. And when I saw that, I mean, as I've been seeing this over the years, I've been understanding what the old world cutting mentality is. I'm just like, wow, he actually is kind of doing what, those Parisian cutters or those British cutters that I know, like they just literally follow the shape. But in a
Going, I wanted to say about like going back to like what we were talking about, how most of the industry doesn't have any idea about what we're doing. It's like hearing diamond dealers talk about, or even retail shops talk about old mine cuts or antique stones is a fucking shit show. The motherfuckers want to talk about, oh, they cut it like this because of the fucking glow of the candlelight. Like, are you fucking stupid? It probably took this person for 1 carat old mine cut. It probably took them, no lie, bro, between 9 and 12 months to polish it down.
yeah,
So now you're telling me you think that this idiot was doing it by candlelight? That's why the fucking facets are big. That's why it's wonky. Like you have no fucking idea about what. Like when I look at an old mine cut or wonky ones, even the really old ones, they were doing exactly what I'm doing. Like I can't even. For me to even try to replicate what they do is tricky because not only are they following the rough, but they're changing angles as they go and they're keeping it all to look deliberate. You know what I mean?
yeah,
So yeah, to gaslight my ass. Exactly. Like it's such a deliberate action. And when you think about modern diamonds being polished on machines going 3,000 RPM, I was talking to a homie that has a diamond workshop, and he told me that when they click the fucking switch to turn the machines on, it takes them a half hour to get up to speed.
oh yeah,
Right.
yeah,
So now polishing a 1 or 2 carat stone takes 1 or 2 months on modern equipment from rough to finished.
yeah.
Now you're telling me these guys that were doing old mine cuts were doing it shit wonky, like because they didn't really understand what? No,
No,
it
they
doesn't
knew.
make any sense.
They knew.
They knew exactly what they were doing, and to have it all work out to be a deliberately looking stone when every single facet on that stone is a different angle, that shit's amazing.
Yeah,
You know what I mean? So I take a lot from that. But then also when I'm looking at that, their whole approach was developed because of the diamond species.
exactly. Yeah,
It wasn't developed for fucking light return. It wasn't developed for proportions or scintillation. It wasn't developed for hearts and arrows. It was
no,
developed for the diamond species.
yeah.
Everything that has come since then has been a fucking shit carbon copy of that and applied to everything else.
Yeah,
You know what I mean?
it's true. It's true.
That's what I see.
I think it's so funny. In my research, one thing that has become so obvious to me is that America is really, really obsessed with brilliant cuts. And I always kind of wondered, like, what is up with that? Because in Europe, they are not at all, interested in brilliant cuts for sapphires and stuff. And then when I started to realize, like, oh, America was pushing brilliant cuts super hard, like in the 1890s, the 1910s, the 1920s, which was when American gem cutting started. And it's like, oh, they got sold this idea that brilliant cut was the most scientific, modern, the best cut that science can make. And like everybody pretty much believes that even today, because we still love, or, whatever, the industry still obsesses over brilliant diamonds.
I mean, as somebody who's polishing, like machining, when I look at a brilliant cut and on a hard ass material, to me it seems like they developed something that was quick to polish, right? Because instead of now polishing a big face on a pavilion, you're polishing little tiny slivers which go like this.
Yeah.
And it just tricked everybody into thinking that's the way it's supposed to be done.
Yeah.
You're also regulating proportions and angles for
Yeah.
commodity, for value. But to make a round out of a piece of rough, generally you lose like 60 or 80% of its weight. If diamonds were so valuable for their scarcity, why the fuck are you like mass butchering stones into commercially symmetry shapes, fourfold shapes?
Yeah.
It doesn't make any sense. You know what I mean? It's like, but it creates an idea about gems where people are okay with that. You know what I mean? Maybe I have one color change sapphire from fucking some random ass location in Madagascar. Somebody sees it and they're like, "Oh, I love this stone, but can you do it in an emerald cut?" It's like, wow, I fucking hate what you're seeing in my work. Like, I asked them, like, what do you, like, are you paying attention to what's happening or what? You know what I mean? But it's interesting to see where people's minds are at with it. Yeah. I mean, I can't tell you how many times I get emails from folks that really appreciate what I'm doing and they say they really like my work, but they want it in a round shape. This byproduct from the commercial marketing over the years to make people think like this is the shape you need for a ring. They can't even visualize, even though they have photos of stones in those shapes on their screen set in settings. They can't even see it set into a setting, unless it's round. Like, it's so crazy to me.
Do you ever, I know that I've bought in a few garnets that are completely spherical. Like, do you ever get...
Somebody's saying rounds are easy to set. I feel like any shaped stone is easy to set if the girdle is even. You know, how many rounds have you set that have fucking wonky ass girdles? Rounds are easy to cut.
Yeah.
So they're easy to sell.
Yeah.
That's not why they're easy.
Yeah. I mean, obviously we have a whole cluster. Okay, we got a whole cluster of commercial shapes that the industry has sort of deemed as like the shapes. Like we have ovals, we've got emerald cuts, we've got whatever. So people are sort of just used to, like, these are the shapes.
You have to make things easy for the middleman salesman to make a business commercially. So yeah, like how do you do that? Let's take, when I talk about symmetries, right? A 3-fold symmetry would be like a triangle. 4-fold, when you cut it in 4 parts, they're all equal: a round, square, rectangle, oval. These are all measurable things you can make 9x6, 8x7, 6 millimeter round, 7 millimeter round. If I'm a company ordering 100 fucking rounds, how do you do that with a parcel of Tunduru garnets?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
They're all different.
That's why people, when they hear garnet, they think of like the dark red, brown varieties, because that's what was mass produced, like diamonds. That's why you can get them everywhere.
So whenever you're working on a stone and you're trying to, basically maintain the shape or maintain, the weight of the stone, do you ever end up coming out with such a crazy wonky shape that like you can't sell it or you can't move it, or you just have to find the right customer?
No, I feel like to get deliberate movement, you need symmetry. You need at least a 2-fold symmetry. So all the stones are symmetrical.
Okay. Yeah.
Some people are like, oh, I like that you do them asymmetrical. Like they're symmetrical, like a face is symmetrical. Cut it in half. There's 2 equal sides. That's how you get an even sparkle. If I was doing things like, that's what I was saying about the antique diamonds, that's where they were sort of experts at what they were doing. They were able to take a wonky shape and make the movement inside the stone be even.
Yeah.
Right.
So I'm wondering, as your style has developed over the years, because one thing that I have noticed is I think it's something that I haven't heard anybody else say. Everybody, if I hear people talking about, the top-notch style, it's always they're talking about the culet, and nobody is really ever talking about the table. But for me, whenever I look at your work, and I don't know if you want to talk about this, but have you sort of developed a style over the years where you're slowly just making the tables bigger and bigger to like sort of look inside the stone? Because that's how I feel when I start looking at your work. I'm just like, wow, why can you see in the stone so much and I can't see this in other people's stones? And I'm just like, oh wait, the table's huge. I don't know if that's
I really like that stone too, actually. You know, I do like larger tables. I have very deliberate reasons why I do the crowns like this. But the thing is too, I like if I deliberately make a table large on a stone, maybe I'm butchering the weight.
yeah. Well, I
You know what
just
I mean?
didn't
So I
know, maybe
don't.
you're just following the shape and it just happened to have a flat top.
That's what I'm saying. Like I don't try to force design aspects on something because then I'm inadvertently butchering it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like if I go into it saying, oh, I want my table this way, I'm gonna kill the weight.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Or if I go into it saying like I'm gonna have my culet this size, I'm killing the weight.
Right.
You know what I mean? So it's just a byproduct of my process. But I guess the process has my like I don't want to call it like I don't know what to fucking say about it. Just
Well,
so yeah, I don't know. I mean, one thing about it is for wearability, right? When you look at antique stones, anytime you see any material, whether chipped or braided, is at the facet junctions. So in my brain, if there's less edges on the crown of the stone, then it's gonna wear better over the time. You know what I mean? So I don't know. That's one of the reasons why I do that, or I appreciate that. You see small tables on stones because people hate polishing large faces.
yeah.
It's hard to get it clean across the whole surface.
Yeah, that's true.
So maybe the question is, why don't you see it more often?
Yeah.
It's because it's shitty to do. I like doing it because my colleagues look at it and be like, holy shit, look at that fucking table on that sapphire. You know what I mean?
How long did that
like commercial? Yeah, exactly. It's hard to do it. Commercially, they keep them small because it's faster and easier to polish. You know, and I see gem cutters doing this all the time. I see them making little tiny fucking tables because they probably hate polishing.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So that's why.
So if you look at your work now and you go back to the beginning, or at least the beginning of when you started to do custom stuff, was there a plan at some point, or is this just a natural evolution? Like, did you want to create a unique style, or did you just end up creating, your process?
I feel like I'm not like trying to create the style. You know what I mean? It's just something it's a byproduct of me trying to like I'm trying to make it right with what I'm doing. You know, I don't really know how to say that. Yeah, I don't know, man. You know, I'm not trying to make it like a certain style.
Yeah.
You know, I'm definitely not trying to fucking make it look like other people's work, which
Right. Well, yeah, no, exactly.
I mean, when
like, did
you
you
know
ever,
what I mean? But
I'm just wondering, like, from a business point of view, from a salesman's point of view that's trying to sell your work, was there at some point this thought, like, I need to make my stuff look nothing like anyone else's work so that I guess so you could sell it or whatever?
yeah, but that goes into like now it's not just about the fasting, it's about the material. You know what I mean? So like when I first started early on, I would go into this one shop I went into particularly, this Gallery of Jewels in San Francisco. There's this guy working in there named Sean. I don't know if you know Sean, big gay dude. He owns D&H on Castro now.
Okay.
But I'm showing him stone after stone. Each time he's like, oh, I can get this from my dealer for $50 a carat. You know, and I'm like, I've been working on this shit for like 10 hours. And he's just like, nah. And I'm like, okay, you know what? It was like this with everybody. And it was just like, fuck these people. They don't even care about what the fuck is happening, right? That was one of the first lessons I got. So early on, I figured I need to start sourcing from places that are trickier for these fucking middlemen to source from. You know what I mean? So yeah, going to places in Africa, going to Asia, doing hard work and trying to get stones that other guys weren't going after, or going after productions that were too small or too scarce or too tricky. And just cultivating that over the years. Okay. On top of also trying to figure out how to fucking polish and do proper proportions on things. You know what I mean? There's like 5 different businesses that I consider that I do.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That I've cultivated over the years. One including selling.
Yeah. Yeah, of course.
I mean, it's great to have middlemen, you know what I mean? Because it creates industry.
Yeah.
You know, one thing talking about gemstones, side note, there's like been trends about people doing like mind the market, whatever, fucking this, that, and the other thing. And you know, particularly in places like Africa or even Asia, there's whole systems, the logistics of middlemen, runners that are making little 2 to 5% markups on when a buyer's in town. The fucking stone passes like 10 guys' hands on the way there, and everybody makes a little bit of money on it. You know, it's a good thing for everybody. Now you have these fucking white colonists going and saying, "Oh, we're gonna fucking cut out all these middlemen. Let's raise the price on everything and prevent everybody else from fucking playing game." You know what I mean? So yeah, there's space for middlemen. I think with my own work, I don't need it. So
yeah, you've kind of carved your own niche, it seems like.
I mean, that's being said for the end side of it. Buying, I'm all about middlemen when I'm buying shit. You know, if I'm trying to get something from a country and I can deal with a local first, I'm gonna do it.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? It's gonna be much easier for them to negotiate for me. You know what I mean? So I don't know.
So it's quite interesting to think about, you know, just your personal journey, like very much informed by what's going on around you, you know, whether it's because you need to buy rough and you need to have a different piece of material than what the local gem shop can, you know, provide commercially or whatever. So how did you actually transition? How did you jump into doing that? Because I know for a lot of cutters who are hobby cutters, you know, like the scary part is actually either like selling something because they, you know, you don't naturally know how to do it, or just kind of like jumping into out of hobby world and into the industry or whatever, you know, the gem trade, where there's people that are fourth generation and 10th generation, whatever, who know every trick. How did you actually end up kind of like bolstering up the courage to just jump out of San Francisco and into wherever it is you jumped into?
I don't know if it was a courage. I think one of the blessings my mother gave me as a child was like I never really stressed about how money was gonna come. And, you know, I'm always hustling. It doesn't matter. You know, so I always, you're dealing with value. There's gonna be money there. You know, unless you're a complete idiot with business. You know what I mean? I feel that the hobby cutters have a different idea of value than the industry, and a different mindset. And I sort of the industry is full, again, I don't want to say middlemen, but it's full of a bunch of practiced salesmen who are good at negotiating value on things that have an innegotiable value.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and they're practiced at fucking human psychology and all of that. So now you take somebody who's coming from like fucking tech world that's faceting one day a weekend, and you introduce the two. It's not going to be a good conversation, because now you have a fucking pirate who's looking at your soul talking next to a fucking person who's just, you know, narcissistic and only thinking about themselves and their hobby. You know what I mean? So yeah, I don't know what to say about that.
Yeah, it's going to be a
You need to be mindful about other people, I think, is the best thing to start with in the gem business.
Yeah.
And also be mindful of the fact that it's limited supply with what we're dealing with, depending on where you're at and what you're doing. You know what I mean? So it's all about how you treat other people. You know what I mean? It's not like the corporate world. It's not like other business practices. Like I have people come to me with, like, it's obvious that they read a book on how to like market yourself to another stranger or something, and like their email is structured this way or something. You can tell when somebody's coming at you the right way or not, right?
Yeah.
I didn't know this either when I started. I think it's good to have a mindset that there is no proper way of doing it. You just got to come real.
Yeah.
And it's also really difficult to try to sell somebody something that is common.
Yeah, true.
You know what I mean? So I think especially in I feel like in jewelry, you because you can't force anybody to buy anything. You know, it's one of those like splurge purchases, right? Extra money, kind of like fashion. So you just sort of have to make what somebody's going to take. And if it comes down to that in my brain, I should just be making stuff that I like.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because it will, you know, if I'm making 50 things a year, I'm going to attract those 50 people. You know, I think marketing, I've never put 1 ounce of thought into marketing. I'm always putting most of my thought into, like, when I'm fucking doom scrolling on Instagram, I just go, you fucking idiot, like, just get to work. You know, just make something. So yeah. That's kind of where I'm at with it. You know, the marketing should come with, if you're doing something that people are interested in.
Yeah.
Well, be there, you know?
I guess maybe it seems, you know, from an outside perspective, it seems like maybe you got a little bit lucky, like you made something that you liked and other people liked it too, which is the luckiest thing for an artist to do, because there's lots of artists who make things they like that everyone hates or whatever, you know, or
No, it's not true. It's not true. Even those artists have their fans. You know what I
they
mean?
have their fans for
And
sure, but
it's
like they might have 6.
the thing is, bro. Like again, it's 12 years I've been working professionally. I feel like the other thing I've been doing mindfully is cultivating the people that I talk and do business with and spend time with. You know, one thing that I do is I won't talk to anybody unless they fucking give me a phone number and let's talk on the phone. You don't know how many times I get people to give me bullshit excuses like, oh, I get bad service where I'm at, or or what, whatever the case may be. It's like you're texting me on Instagram, you can call me.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Well, yeah,
So,
I know
but
that.
I probably lose like 300 sales a year because I'm telling you to fuck off if you don't want to call me.
Yeah.
You know what
That's
I mean?
kind of,
So
yeah,
yeah,
it's kind of the old school.
it comes down to that. Like, I've cultivated. I've been doing this for 10 years now, almost more. Now it's at the point where my clientele are like friends. You know what I mean? I don't even like when I get DMs on Instagram. It's like I don't have to deal with it because I've cultivated the point now. All these people know the deal. You know, I have all these people that are willing to do friendly, nice business. They reach out politely. We have nice conversations on the phone.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? They're mindful about the situation.
That's
You
cool.
know, it's like that. That's the thing. So yeah,
It's unusual
just
because
being mindful is the best thing to do.
it's unusual. I think for probably anyone watching this, anybody who's at all in the trade, like, you know how many random messages you get every single day from a dude trying to sell you some random piece of rough or whatever. So like the fact that you have been able to build this small thing around you that isn't like that, it's a bit refreshing because, you know,
I bet that's like the one thing that people like say negative about me is that I'm sort of harsh on like comments. You know what I mean? Like I don't even want to entertain anything. If you come at me like, "But what's the price on this?" Here's my email. Please send me a number and a good time to reach you. You know what I mean?
yeah.
Yeah, we'll chat about it.
Well, yeah, I know the first time I messaged you, you just said, call me. And I was kind of like, what? Because I don't really like calling people. So I was just kind of like, okay, I guess I'm going to have to
Well,
call
that's the thing. Like people want to fucking they have this not you, but people have this like it's like an entitlement. Here's a fucking question: what kind of machine do you use? You just type that shit and send it. Like, just give me a call.
you.
Put
Yeah.
in the fucking work to like talk to me a little bit. You know what I mean? You want all this free shit? Call
Yeah.
me. You want to know what the price is on this stone? Give me a fucking call.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I don't give a shit what the deal is. You
Yeah.
know what I mean? So I don't know. Instant gratification. People like this.
So, okay. So instead of, this is the point where I would normally be like, tell us all about your machines. But instead of that question, I want to ask you an opposite question. Do
Getting a
you
little messy over
think
there.
the machine is important? The specific machine. You got an we got an Ultratech V5. We've seen it on Instagram and whatever. You have an awesome machine. So does it matter that you have an awesome machine? Could you have had the
Let me
same?
ask you a question.
Yeah,
Like the laps, how many laps do you use in for like a process of one stone? Like how many different laps?
maybe 3.
3. Are they all manufactured by the same company?
No, maybe 2 companies.
Do they have high spots in the same spots?
No, I mean they're all
Okay.
different.
So
They're all
what the
very,
fuck does that have to do with the machine's accuracy?
yeah, exactly.
Right? That's that's what I'm saying. You're asking me a question like that. I know that you don't have any idea what you're doing
Yeah,
because it doesn't matter. You know,
yeah,
you should be like I'm constantly between the laps. They're made differently. So if my mast is always the same, what's it fucking matter if the laps are doing it? You know what I mean? It doesn't matter.
yeah,
So I can do the same work on a different machine if I was able to season the laps properly,
yeah,
right? I
yeah,
can
yeah,
use any machine. It's like asking Jesus what kind of fucking hammer he liked to use as a carpenter. You know what I mean?
yeah. Which brand?
Doesn't matter. Give me any hammer. I'll
Yeah,
fucking nail it in, right?
yeah.
That's what I'm saying. So yeah, the questions should be. But then I had somebody ask me what kind of laps I'm using, but I've talked to other people who are like, man, I can't use what you're using. Or I like people tell me they use this or they use that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I have some people that are really rigid on the pencils they use too. They only use Ticonderoga. So I don't know. Maybe it does. Maybe it does matter.
Yeah.
But,
Or, you
yeah,
know,
I could
maybe,
probably draw the same drawing without that pencil.
yeah. I mean, but maybe it just fits your style. Like, you know, I did a class recently with Meg Berry just for fun on Zoom. And
I
she
love
showed
Meg.
me her whole, yeah, I love Meg. I know you know Meg. She showed me her whole style and I was like, wow, this is really, really different than what I do. And it works really well.
Works for her.
But I still like what I do better because it makes sense for me. You know, it's not
No,
because it's
it
better
happens.
or worse.
It happens all the time. And I tell everybody that when they ask me about what I prefer to use, I tell them just cut more stones and figure it out yourself. Because there's going to be, I could tell you all day long what I use and it's not going to help you at all. And then here we are fucking wasting time. Like,
Yeah.
just go fucking polish a piece of quartz and tell me what you think works.
Yeah. Well, again, going back to like the random nuggets of wisdom that you've given me over the time, you know, another thing that you said, I remember there was a specific moment in Tucson where I was talking to you, and then Meg Berry walked up, and that was the first time I'd met her. And you know, you guys started to get into this topic of like, the stone should look wet. Like if you've done it right, the stone should look wet. And I was kind of like, I'm not sure if I really know what they're talking about. And then I went home and I changed, you know, COVID happened right after that. And I had a lot of free time to just play with polish and change my style. And I changed my final grit and I did a couple stones and I was like, oh, this is what he was talking about in Tucson. It looks wet. It looks different. It's shiny. It's glossy.
No, I mean, that saying that like specifically, you can see, even if you're applying scratches using a soft lap with like 100,000 grit, you're putting scratches in, you can see them at arm's length. Even though you're not seeing the scratches, it's distorting a little bit and it's causing an effect. Whatever the fuck you want to call it, it's there, right? Even like I learned something in that conversation with Meg as well. Like she was talking about how, remember she was saying, I don't know if you caught it, but she was talking about how she was using 50K diamond and it stopped working for her, so she switched it up.
Yeah.
I feel the same way. I feel like the companies might have switched up what they were doing, but then I switched up what I'm doing on the same laps and stuff. You know what I mean? So I'm constantly like, and it's every stone, like that big pink garnet. I swore to God that thing was spinel when I was working on it because it was polishing like spinel.
Yeah.
But it, you know, it turned out to be garnet. But they polish different, you know what I mean? So 1,000 stones of trying to like obsessively figure out what I'm doing with the polish. I'm thinking about things on a very small level.
Yeah.
And I still have to switch it up.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like my process still has to change because things are changing out of my control.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So like when you get to the point in your career where you're like, oh no, I figured out how to put a good polish on sapphire, you're fucking dead in the water.
Or you're
because you haven't figured out shit. You're just not looking at it right.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? that is something I hate myself for, is like all the stones before like the ones that I realized what I was looking at. You know what I mean? Like I come to these epiphanies, bro, and I'm working and I'm like, oh God, I should have been looking at all the stones like this.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, but it's good that happens to me still, I think, is because I'm still eager to learn.
Well, I spent a lot of time a couple of years ago with these two old cutters in England, you know, like the last two jam peg cutters in England, in London. And one of the things that they told me that stuck in my mind was like, you know, they were talking to me about their apprenticeship and all the professional stuff that they did. And the guy was basically like, I was cutting stones professionally for 10 years. And then I walked into work, you know, on like year 10, day one, and I looked at my stone and I was like, oh, I just got it. I just understood what I've been doing this whole time, you know, looking at a preform, just like I didn't know what I was doing for 10 years. I was just doing what I was told. And then at some point it just like light bulb went off and then I understood. Like this is
that happens with every stone. I mean, it happens with everything, right? Like we're just talking about polishing. Yeah, exactly what you're saying. The last stone I just did, I did a little peachy stone.
Mm-hmm.
I learned something about preforming that I was like, oh shit, what the fuck? You know what I mean? Like just proportionally, right?
Yeah.
It happens every time. But how do you learn that when you keep doing the same thing off of GemCAD?
Yeah.
You don't learn those things. You know what I mean?
And
when you keep concerning yourself about what kind of laps or what kind of machines people are using, you're not even thinking about like what you need to think about to get like a clean polish on something. You know what I mean?
or just thinking about the stone. I mean, yeah.
I'm making you guys dizzy. This is what I'm talking about, how I can't sit still.
Okay. Well, you did get so far. I know I made you get up before breakfast, so it's fair. So then, okay, we've determined then that the machine isn't the most important thing. Obviously, looking at the stone is an important thing, but what about one thing I love? I love picking apart I love picking apart American cutting because since I moved out of America, I have personally seen the light of other paths, you know. And I'm always curious, like preforming. So let's talk a little bit about preforming, because to me, preforming is part of gem cutting. For some people, preforming isn't anything. So how do you stand on it? You know, when you're looking at a stone and you're getting ready, do you hand shape it, or you just?
Yeah, I hand shape it. Hold on, I'll grab some stuff to shape. Yeah, I feel like, how the fuck are you finding center point if you don't grind away the shit on the outside? Like, are you really trying to guess how many millimeters you're grinding off on the right and left? You know what I mean?
Well, yeah,
I feel like it's just reckless. It's out of control.
It's out of control.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. I'll just pull up
I have
another.
some in here that are like in the middle of preforming.
Okay. So here's another. This is another one I like. I like a lot of your square ones.
That's the thing. Like when I asked you to take 4 right angles and make a shape different than a square, like you can't.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So for me to make something that has 4 sides but look different than commercial is tricky.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So I'm always trying that. I'm always trying to take sort of like, you know, mass like commercial outlines and making them sort of look unique.
One of the things I like about some of these types of stones is just like how subtle it is. Like sometimes I'll just sit here and I'm looking at it for like 5 minutes and I'm just like, what is he doing? What is he doing? What is he doing? And I'm like, man, the sides aren't parallel, you know, like it looks like a rectangle, but it's not. And then you're just like, damn, okay, that's just one thing. So, okay, what do you got?
I mean, like I would ask you, like, let me ask you a question as a fascinating teacher.
Yeah.
What aspects of the design create the symmetry?
I mean, everything really. I mean, you have the outline, you've got the balance of the facets on the top, the balance of the facets on the bottom, the relationship of the facets on the top and the bottom. I mean, all of that stuff comes into play, but then really it's just how you see it come together, you know, like it's subtle and complicated at the same time, which is what I like about when I look at your stones, because they make, I don't know. I mean, I'm not trying to put you on a pedestal. Like I like a lot of people's stones, but there's not so many people's stones where I look at them and I'm just like, I can't figure out how he did it. Usually it's easy, you know, like sometimes I just look at them and I'm just like, okay, I see that there's symmetry, but it's very complicated. But I'm like, but I don't think what he's doing is complicated. It's a trick. It's a great trick. Visually.
I try to keep, I think that the trickiest thing to do it with any craft is make it as simple as you can. You know what I mean? And also making it interesting. And I don't know what that means, really interesting, but like, well, when I look at fine jewelry and I really like it, you know, I tell myself, like, what do I really like about fine jewelry? And it's all the little details that are really the only way they're visible from a distance is like the refracted pattern from it or something, you know what I mean? Or stuff like this, you know what I mean? How do I apply that to the stones? You know, what things are within my control? That's something I asked myself early on.
Yeah.
What things are within my control and how much of that can I fuck with? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And we just go from there.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, like I said, if you're taking, this is a little sapphire, bullshit sapphire, but it's got all like rough edges and divots and stuff. Like I see people just straight dop this onto a dop stick and start fucking cutting a 4-fold symmetry into it.
Yeah, me
like
too.
how do you know what's going on before you even get into it? You know what I mean? Like how do you find center on that? You know, let's say I dop it a little off center and I have to grind away too much on one side, you just lost the whole stone. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Or just, I mean, more to me, the red flag that goes up when I see people doing that as well is just like there's holes in the stone. Like it's not. Yeah. So this is one of your preforms, or this is
the hand preform. Yeah. So I try to get it, you know, I try to get the symmetry as tight as I can without wasting it before I even get it on the machine. You know what I mean?
You're just doing these on fingers, right?
Yeah, I just do it on the lap by hand. That's the trickiest part because that's where you can lose weight. You know, if I overcut a little bit on one side, I have to overcut on the other side, and I try not to do that because you do that enough times, you just wasted it.
Yeah, exactly.
But I feel like it's important to get that as tight as I can before I dop it.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah.
You know what I mean?
I mean, you know, when you look at other parts of the world, the guy who does preforming is always the guy who has the most experience. You know, the guy who has the less shaky hands, and you know, the guy who's done it the most. Because
I mean, what like in the from the entire like the entire process of cutting a stone, from you know getting it preforming, grinding. What do you feel is the most important step in that process if you had to pick one?
Yeah, it's preforming for sure. I mean, like,
I feel like it's rough. It's grading.
well, okay, grading. I didn't consider that, but
you know what I mean? Like the
yeah,
grading. Like when I think about like how many professional graders you know that go out there and buy parcels for others?
I don't know anyone that does that. I'm not
That's
sure.
what I'm saying.
Yeah,
It's because it's such a fucked up business. Imagine giving somebody $100,000 and they fucked it up. Like
yeah,
people end up dead like this. You
yeah,
know what I mean? Grading, grading is the hardest, most difficult thing I've ever experienced. You know what I mean? Especially with rough, because it's sort of like the Wild West. You know, once you make a decision, that's it. You know,
yeah.
once I say yes on something, I take it.
And you're like under some kind of time pressure. You're in somebody
Yes,
else's world. You know, like it.
dude. I bought a 800 carat parcel of sapphires in one Tucson, and those motherfuckers literally gave me an hour to look at it because other people wanted to look at it. And it's like I have to grade all these stones within the hour and talk shit to you and negotiate and give you my cash and fucking walk away like holy shit, what am I doing?
Yeah,
Like it's the worst feeling in the world.
yeah.
You know what I
But
mean?
when you get home and you realize you didn't mess up, then it's okay.
Sometimes
Yeah.
I have a whole fucking showcase of mess ups. Show you guys real quick.
But who knows? Maybe at
From the
this point
years.
you can sell the mess ups.
No, they're all mess ups.
So this is
I keep them there so I remind myself how big of an idiot I was.
yeah, the wall, the
And
gem graveyard, yeah, or the wall of shame.
Gym graveyard. No, it's true though. That's my tuition. You know, instead of paying a middleman to teach me some information, I fucking went out and made my own mistakes.
Yeah.
I
And
still make my own mistakes. You
that
know
can,
what I mean? Even with selling, you know, I have a client slash somebody I want to become a friend, right? I've been working with for a couple of years, made a few sales here and there. I'm still fucking winging it on valuation as well. You know what I mean? Like I don't know what the fuck shit sells for. Nobody talks about pricing in our business, in the real business. You know
yeah.
what I mean?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, no, it's super hard. And that's almost always the number one question that people have, whether they're in my class or just people in groups on Facebook, like, how much should I charge? And it's just like, man, what country are you in? You know, like I can't even, people ask me that. I'm just like, I'm in Bangkok, man. Like the prices here are not the same. I have no idea. Every time I talk to you, you like blow my mind because you're just like, dude, you're so cheap. And I'm like, dude, you're so expensive.
You know what? I'm looking at at Tucson. I'm looking at these like it's like the jewelry industry. I forget who told me this, but they likened it to a big circle. You know what I mean? And you have like rough guys in Nigeria here, then you have the fucking Dallas retail fucking saleswoman here, and then you have the you know, it's like it's all one business, but it's so fucking varied. You know what I mean? And the idea of value between one place and another is so varied.
Yeah.
You know, it's really interesting. It's something you've got to keep constant tabs with. I just sold a stone that to an awesome person, but I realized that I probably could have gotten more than double for it, you know, easily. But it, you know, like when I bought it, it didn't matter. You know, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
At the end, it doesn't matter. The best advice I can give for that sort of stuff is if you're fine with the number, it doesn't matter if it's too expensive or too low.
Yeah. That's true.
You know what I mean? It doesn't.
And you can,
When I'm buying rough, I never try to like, dealers will always try to negotiate. Oh, well, I seen this for cheaper. Or it was this price. I never try to do that. We're looking at this stone right now. You know what I mean? When I'm buying, even if I know it's probably too much, if I like it a lot, I'll fucking buy it and put it away for 10 years. Then it'll be worth something. You know what I mean?
yeah. 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 I mean, there's so many aspects to trying to be an independent, you know, cutter and merchant. As you've said, there's a lot of jobs inside of there, and to be successful, you have to get pretty good at all of them, you know. And I mean, I'm just watching your travels and stuff. Like you're obviously traveling to different countries, you know, you're talking to people in different parts of the world, you're buying, you know, you're investing money, which is something that is also very scary, especially if you aren't sure you're a good cutter. You know, you don't want to.
I think if it comes to back to the grading, like if you know what you're buying, it's okay. You know what I mean? And I've been doing it now enough years where it's comfortable doing it because I've seen the outcome over and over and over again. You know what I mean? But yeah, it is unnerving in the beginning, but shit like that is supposed to be unnerving. You know what I mean? Like going to these places, the best things I've learned from traveling is just how to like listen to other people differently. You know what I mean? And just try not like you know, for me, I'm an only child, very like self-absorbed in my own like world. It's difficult for me to like put myself in other people's positions. You know what I mean? I'm always like projecting my own thoughts into your brain, or have these assumptions or expectations or whatever it may be. But yeah, traveling internationally, I think, has really taught me a lot about how to just fucking put all that away. It's hard practice, but just push all that out of your brain and honestly listen to somebody else. Because really, we're all there for the same thing. So, you know,
Yeah.
you might as well take the time and get to know somebody. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. I like how you keep taking it into human relations, and I'm like trying to push it back into, no, it's great.
I'm
I
trying
mean,
not to talk about specifics.
yeah, no, technicalities of gym cutting. No, it's true though. I mean, and it's not something that we hear too much. I mean, in the circles that I move in, it's like, there's a lot of gemologists and they're talking about science, and it's like not about people too much. And then, there's a lot of gym cutters and it's like a lot of technical stuff, and it's not really about relationships too much, sometimes maybe, but so, it's kind of just interesting to hear how it's affected you. Were you traveling much before you started cutting?
No, not at all. You know, I remember the days, like, you know, I grew up in New Jersey, and then I moved to San Francisco, and I remember it would take me like 3-4 months to save up enough to fly back to New Jersey to visit my mom, you know, without like cash on the side.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, no. My first international trip, I'm gonna give a shout out to my friend Michael. I get this, I tell you guys a funny story. I got this like on Instagram early on Instagram, maybe like 2013-ish, 2014 maybe. I got a message from some rando guy like, "Hey, I see you're in San Francisco. I want to look at stones." I'm like, "Yeah, sure, come on through." He's like, "Well, I only come through there like between midnight and 3 a.m." I'm like, "Well, shit, you know, I'm sorry. That's kind of weird." No, you know, and then whatever, months go by, he hits me up again. Like, I really want to look at stones. So my friend that has a tattoo shop in the inner Sunset, I said, "Hey, bro, can I open the shop up at midnight, meet this guy?" And he's like, "Yeah, whatever." So I'm sitting there at midnight. This dude rolls up. He spends $25,000 with me on gemstones.
Wow. Okay.
Just like
That's a good idea.
drug trafficker,
Yeah. Okay.
straight up. So cool. That's awesome. A few months later, rolls through, spends another 30K with me. It's awesome. So then he comes through and he's like, you know, if I buy us tickets to Sri Lanka, he was at the time he was trying to shift his business. You know what I mean? But he was doing it in a smart way. He was like, if I buy us, I had never been international before. He was like, if I buy us tickets to Sri Lanka, would you help me go buy stones? And I said, fuck yeah, man, right? So we booked tickets for like 6 months out. Both of us had never been international. We were like, we both grew our beards out. I like grew a big ass beard because I was like, I'm gonna blend in. Nobody's gonna know.
Yeah, that works.
Shit. We get to Sri Lanka together, two fucking idiots with backpacks walking around Colombo and shit. Dude, after like 1,000 times of Sri Lankan guys being like, Assalamu alaikum, I'm like, I'm not Muslim because I had a big ass beard. They're like, oh, you didn't ride a motorcycle? I'm like, no. They're like, why the fuck you have a beard? But yeah, that was the first time I'd went with this guy. And on that trip, there was another guy that random DM from fucking Sri Lankan dealer. I saw somebody up there posting that they ignore these guys. Some dude just fucking random said, hey, if you're ever in Sri Lanka, hit me up. This was like a year before I went. So now me and Michael are on our way there. We're in Dubai on a layover. I hit this guy up on Instagram, like, hey, it's me from last year. I'm gonna be in Sri Lanka tomorrow. What's up? You know, and he's like, oh shit. So he picked us up from the airport and he like literally spent 2 weeks with us, taking us around the country.
Yeah.
And he's still one of my great friends.
Yeah.
And just, you know, it just worked out. So the international is what really got things going for me. You know, you hear guys talk down about places like Sri Lanka or like Chantaburi or the markets, but when I watch those guys work, it's like, it's really inspirational. You know, it's like, it's their mindset on not only what they're handling, but how business can be,
Yeah.
is mind-boggling.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So that's what I got to say about that. But just going international changed things for me instantly.
I think Sri Lanka is such a good example because it's such an amazing culture. I've been there like 3 times, and my co-teacher in the school is Sri Lankan as well. So I'm working on a Sri Lankan machine. So somehow, in my journey, I didn't even know anything about Sri Lanka. Even when I got started fasting, I was like, I don't know. And the deeper I get into it, I'm just like, I mean, obviously there's many places that are amazing as well, but like Sri Lanka just keeps coming back for me. It's just like, man, Great
Dude,
people.
those guys, the dealers there are like, you can't even compare the the hierarchy. It's like Sri Lankans above everybody else as far as I'm concerned, with
Yeah.
like negotiating, with being mindful,
They've been
with
doing it
fucking.
for like 5,000 years. I mean, literally going around,
It's amazing,
on boats to Europe before Europe was moving around. And
bro. And then when I watch these fucking dealers here in the States, they put up photos, like when they show Sri Lanka, they put up photos like half naked man in a river with like hand woven baskets. I'm like, you're an asshole, bro. The guys I know, the guys I know, they're like, between 30s and 40s, unmarried, so they still live at home with their parents. But I have a friend that his parents won't give him a house key because they don't want him going out drinking. So
oh.
that when he comes home late at night, he has to knock on the door because he can't get in. So all these guys instead are renting out like the penthouse rooms at all these hotels around Sri Lanka, and it's like jungles and Colombo everywhere, fucking partying like nonstop. That's the thing I didn't realize about Sri Lanka, is how big of like a tourist destination it is for other places
Yeah.
like China or Russia or all those, that whole side of the world. Sri Lankans are used to being around other cultures, having fun with other cultures, being open-minded towards other cultures. Outside of the whole gem thing, they're just naturally open-minded.
Yeah.
It's a beautiful place.
Yeah.
I fucking love it. I would live there. I'm trying to move there now.
I had a good story from the last time I was there, kind of not quite similar to your story, but I was getting ready to go, and this girl randomly sent me a Facebook message, no words at all, just a video of an antique machine. And I was just like, wow, you know me well. Like, if anyone knows me, they send
That's
me a
lurker
video
shit
of an
though.
antique machine, they're deep in my heart already. So I'm just like, yeah, it's something I've been looking for actually. It's a machine I wanted to document, and I start texting her like, where is this? And she like literally speaks no English, types no English, but she somehow she communicated that this thing was at her house. It was her father's, and I was like, can I come visit? She's in Ratnapur. I was like, I'm going to be in Ratnapur in like 3 weeks. Can I
Beautiful
come?
there.
And she was like, yeah. And that was basically all she said was yeah. And then she sent me a picture of this KFC, and she was like, I'll be there at this
Meet
KFC.
you here.
So I went to the KFC, and I'm just like, I don't even know who I'm looking for. She doesn't even have a picture on her profile. I have literally no idea. And this girl rolls up in a tuk-tuk and just is like, no English, just like, get in. Her
Get
sister,
in.
her sister's
Oh
there.
shit.
I'm by myself, and I'm just like, okay, I don't know what's about to happen. So we drive up into the mountains. The sun is setting. I was a little bit late, which sucked for the lighting, but the sun was setting. We go way up in the mountains over Ratnapura. We arrive at their house at like sunset. None of them speak English at all, and the dad does a little bit, but it's like a whole family's there, babies. They're just like, come on, check this out. And they got the whole thing, the ancient machines, the ancient preforming thing, the saw that they're just grinding up quartz and rubbing on the edge so they can do
Wow.
preforming. And they were just like, bust the camera out. They were just like, we're going to show you everything before the sun goes down. I just start videoing, and it was just like, wow, this is amazing. They didn't want anything from me at all. They just knew that I loved what they were doing. Like, they knew I would appreciate it, and they were just like, I don't even know how they knew about me. Even to this day, I still have no idea. Like, because we
Because they're
haven't spoken
lurking.
too much. But
But it shows you it's beautiful. Like the whole country is entangled with gemstones. You
yeah,
know what I mean? It's
yeah.
really a
Like,
wonderful thing.
I think if you love what they have and they love what they have, they sense it, and then they're just like, come, like, and they're
It's a
doing.
different it's a different mentality for them though. You know what I mean? Like even homie, they'll get involved in the industry like young. You know what I mean? Just
Yeah,
because that's the way
yeah.
it is there. So
Yeah.
it's totally different for them. It's
I think
awesome.
I think as an American, it's really hard for us to understand, like, going to that country specifically, like, things are so much more communal and open and like just not rigid, and it's just like, you can come to my house, you can come over.
Mhm.
I'm going to call you at 3 o'clock in the morning on Facebook because it's normal. I don't know what time it is for you where you're at, so I'm just going to call you with no warning. Like, okay,
Mhm.
whatever, dude. Like,
Yeah,
you,
yeah, it's cool.
we have a different culture. It's interesting, but
No, I love it.
I think Americans specifically should travel as much as possible to break their minds down. Like, going to Asia, just like, it's a different thing. the cultural norms of
Every one of those places, like even Africa was surprising in a bunch of ways. I never anticipated the how old the gem industry is in Nigeria, for instance. How like you have generations there, just as Sri Lanka there, we're just working stones. You know what I mean? Whole families, and it's really like you don't even think of that when you go over there. Like our mindset as Americans, just from for me at least, marketing and all that shit. Man, it was really like humbling to say the least. Going to that place, or even any place and just seeing it. Vietnam was one of those trips that I hated because Vietnamese people for some reason hated me. I don't know what the deal was. It was hard for me to make friends until the very, very end. It was like being in a cold place for like three weeks, and then the last 2 days, finally, I got a bunch of hugs from like locals. You know what I mean? But I had to fucking work for it the whole time. It took a long time. You know what I mean? So it's different in every place, right? Thailand, I've never had that. Thailand, I've only had like smiles and happiness. You know what I mean? But
yeah,
everywhere's different.
yeah, it's true. It's true. I'm trying to think about if I wanted to ask you anything else specifically. I don't know. I think we sometimes I just get the feeling that we're at that pinnacle moment where we don't need to say anything else. I didn't ask every question I wanted to ask, but I feel like they're worthless now, or they're just pointless. Like I think we said it all. Do you have anything else you want to say?
No, I appreciate everybody that's listening early on. And I don't even, what time is it there, bro? Is it like 12 or something?
No, it's like 11:30. I'll show a couple more stones because I have some more pictures that I didn't show, or some videos actually. I appreciate that you started at some point. Oh yeah, there was a question from the audience that I didn't. Let me put the picture up first, and then I'll ask because it's a question about. Pauline Jameson asked. Well, first of all, she said your photos are amazing. Just the finished stone on the back of the hand. What do you light them with? And then she asked California Sunshine. And what camera do you use? So this is one quintessential.
I'm just pretty much using my iPhone, and I try to get the newer ones because I have better cameras on them.
Yeah.
But because the colors were true. But honestly, it doesn't, like, I'll do it in the daytime, in the shade, in the morning, shaded daylight. I hate direct light. Like that green stone was taken near my workbench, so I have like diffuse light coming from outside.
Okay.
Like this one is outside in the shade because I was trying to get the two tones of the color.
Yeah.
It depends on the stone, but mostly it's not direct bright light.
Okay. So
it's good.
Yeah, diffused. But you're mostly just it's just sunlight mostly, right? In the window or outside.
Sunlight. Yeah, like this one, you can see my yellow light from my workbench. I was trying to show the purple fluorescence of the stone because in daylight it's just totally gray.
Yeah. And this is another one I really like. Whenever you do show the befores and afters, you can very clearly see, like, what did he do? Like, okay, it's an oval that has a flat side and a round side, and in the final stone, it's an oval with a flat side and a round side. But
I try not to fuck up. Like, what's the point of the preform if you're going to change it? You know what I mean? Like, I try not to fuck it up. That's something I had to learn too, is how fine everything is, really. And it sounds silly to say that, but everything is like you need little tiny little movements to make big happenings happen. You know what I mean? Especially like the smaller you go, right?
Yeah, of course.
I finesse the shit out of the stones though. Like this thing is square almost. You know what I mean? But I love this thing. I just cut an accessory stone for this stone. It's a little peach one. Look, I'm really excited about this actually.
There's a couple of the squarish ones that you've done over the years that I've really, really liked, where you kind of do like a border around the culet and it looks really framed in a way. And this is kind of one of them. This isn't my favorite one, but it is kind of has that effect where the culet isn't. It has like
I'll tell you the border that's reflecting right around it, dude. I was trying to fuck with I don't even know what the proper critical angle of sapphire is. What's it, like 33, 34 or something? But
yeah,
I have some angles on the bottom of that thing. I brought down to like 27 degrees. I feel like critical angle doesn't matter if it matters on placement as well.
Yeah,
you still get reflection even below the critical angle sometimes. So, I'm still trying to work that out, but
it
worked out on that stone, which is surprising.
I know
but that's
my Sri Lankan coworker, sometimes he'll bring me some stones to look at that he cut, and he's like, check this out. And I'm like, oh yeah, it looks great. And it's like, it's a tourmaline, and he's like, last angle is like, 35 or whatever, like window angle. And I'm just like, but there's no window. And he's like, exactly.
I think because you have other factors that play, you know what I mean? Like there's movement in the stone. It's not just static like I said, it's not just your 4 light rays traveling through. You know what I mean? There's
It's
other things happening.
it's really dynamic. Light, I mean, obviously light is complicated. It's something that's very hard for us to properly visualize. Oh yeah, is this that one that's
Look at the fucking colors, like it's stupid. I was really shocked by this thing. I still think it might be spinel, but I'm gonna have to send it for test.
It looks cool though. It's really long.
You know, usually with garnets, you'll see some silk, especially like larger ones. There's always some fucking rutile silk, something. There's nothing. There's little like rust colored. They look like kidney beans kind of floating inside.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
Here's a question that just popped in. You know, during all these years of travel and self-education, have you ever bought synthetics on accident or bought, fake rough?
I probably have cut some back in the days because there was, when the Mahenge deposit was found, and there's probably still some floating around the market, there was a color change sapphire that was being sold as the Mahenge garnet, and they fucking processed the outside of it to look just the same alluvially. So it's like that, and you'll see them. They sell them. These hobby cutters will sell them as like a color change Mahenge, but they go from like bluish to purple, pink. They're all synthetic sapphire. They're super clean.
Okay.
They go by the wayside because nobody's testing garnets, right? So you see a lot of like big clean Mahenge garnets. Most of them are synthetic sapphire. That's why I want to test this one.
Okay.
Yeah. So sometimes shit will slip through and you don't expect it. I've had a friend in Tanzania spend 25 grand on a rough spinel. The surface, you know how like spinel will look sort of waxy when it's broken and alluvial? It had the surface, it had the specific gravity of spinel. They're testing it there at the lab. Refraction was high. He sent it back. I had to saw a piece of it off. I cut a little piece, sent it to AGL, and it was some weird slag glass, lead glass that they'd never seen before.
Oh, wow.
You know what I mean? But he fucking handed that cash over in the bush and it's gone. You know what I mean? Even those guys that probably sold it probably didn't even know what it was.
Yeah.
And the funny thing is that they don't make that shit in Tanzania, right? So it was probably made somewhere in Switzerland, brought to Tanzania, deposited into the market on purpose. Because guys don't want, like, sometimes the big companies that are mining don't want you buying and fucking up their price point. You know what I mean? So there's a bunch of shit that can go awry. They can try to send a bunch of fakes your way to dissuade you, take all your money and make you hate your life. Maybe they go and pay fucking 10 dudes $100 each to go fucking lump you up in your hotel room in the middle of the night.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It could be anything. It's not much for somebody to ruin your day. So yeah, buying synthetics by accident sort of at least my worries when I'm traveling. Because the reality is you should know what you're looking at when you're buying. You know what I mean? Before I even got there, I was fucking grading rough like a maniac. So I already sort of knew what I was doing. Okay. I went in confident.
So David Warren asks, do you ever collaborate with jewelers for a specific piece, for a specific piece of jewelry? You cut a stone that works for their idea?
I mean, yeah, to a degree. I like to have jewelers sort of send me sketches of what they have in mind. If they want to do that sort of thing, I will. But we got to remember that we're working with scarce material. So maybe you're looking for that perfect golden retriever, but you want him in fucking tropical fish colors and it just doesn't exist. You know what I mean? So
yeah,
it depends on what you're looking for. Yeah, if you want a square in your design, no, I probably can't do it.
Yeah. So, it's like has special sides.
Well, it's gotta have direction, because you show me a perfectly square piece of rough without fucking it up. You know what I mean? I feel like all rough has a direction.
Yeah.
Natural crystals.
Yeah.
Sometimes I'll buy a pre-cut stone and then recut it if somebody wants like a square, rectangle, or something.
But
at that point, it's butchering a rare mineral for ego, and it's just stupid to do that, I think.
So somebody had asked, what's your thoughts on labs and origin? Because you were talking about labs. Do you use labs a lot, or just if you need to?
I do. The labs, it's a tricky thing, right? Because labs are only as good as their reference in their library, right? So if GIA just hired, only in 2007 they hired Vincent to go to reference to get reference samples. So what the fuck were they doing before 2007?
Yeah, good.
You know what I mean? So yeah, I don't know. If I'm gonna work with a lab, I like working with AGL. I'll use GIA in the States if I want to do something quick. But I feel like AGL, it's a small group, and I'm able to call them. Like I just had a situation with a stone. I was able to call, and they put me on with Chris, the head of the lab, which I was surprised. And I was able to ask him stupid questions for like a half an hour, and he was answering me. Not like an idiot. So
Yeah.
That's cool. You know what I mean? Like, I feel like it depends on the lab. When people are trying to define value, that's sort of its conflict of interest. You know what I mean? I feel like all labs define value, whether they like to say so or not. You know what I mean? You fucking, if I send a stone to your lab and you give me a color designation of brownish, bluish green, it's gonna fucking lower the value, right? Like, just because you called it brownish.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And stuff
Exactly.
like this. I feel like labs should do origin, but these guys, again, they're getting most of their reference from fucking middlemen in Hong Kong after the stones have been stepped on 100 times. So how the fuck are you going to trust these people on origin when origins pop up and disappear within months? You know what I mean?
It's yeah, that's
So
a it's a super complicated. It's a whole interesting topic in itself.
you
Uh,
can only do origin with controlled supplies, government controlled supplies. Like when I think about, sapphire deposits in Nigeria, they're so unregulated and they pop up and disappear so quickly. And it's such a specific type of stone that's coming from that locality. Like sometimes like there's stories, you know, corporations hiring mercenaries and murdering an entire labor force in a mine and replacing it with their own. So maybe these guys want to keep the mine site secret.
yeah.
Maybe they don't want other buyers going and finding out where it is. Like, why the fuck would they tell you the origin on a stone if they're still mining the site? It's bad for business.
Well, I guess
Right?
that's kind of the cool thing with Vincent, him actually going around and doing that, because then it sort of
That's what's amazing. I feel
transcends.
like people don't give him enough credit for that. People don't give him credit for that because literally it's not like people are like, oh, do you visit the mine sites? No, for safety, for value. They don't want a dumb foreigner going in there and offering 10 times the normal price and just fucking everybody else's business up. Like there's a lot of issues that go on at the mine sites. For Vincent to go all the way out to these places and to go to an active mine site is fucking nuts.
Yeah,
It's fucking nuts. That guy's amazing.
yeah.
He really is. Is he doing okay?
No, he's doing good. He's doing good. And we had a brunch this morning. We have a kind of a weekly Sunday ritual where we just get together and spout our woes and everything, because we're both stuck here. We're all stuck here, trying to, like all of us in Bangkok are like mostly people who travel a lot. Like if we didn't travel a lot, we would not move out of our own country. So to be
Right.
stuck in Bangkok, which is like that was no one's idea. It was just like Bangkok is the middle spot. So whatever. That's our
How is
biggest.
the city? Is the city sort of like, is it really shut down? Is it getting
No,
back to sort
no.
of
I mean, a year ago, yes, like February, March, April, May, it was like a ghost town. It was crazy. We didn't literally leave our house for a couple of months, and then
wow.
I had to go out for a couple of times to like do some shipping, and it was weird because it was like literally you'd go to the JTC, but the JTC was closed. I mean, it was completely, you couldn't even go in the building, but the post office over there, but like you just go out there and there's like literally no one on the street at all. No food sellers,
Wow.
no taxis, no cars, just
Wow.
like a ghost town. But now, I mean, that was a year ago. Now you can't tell, other than everyone's wearing a mask and you have to scan your hand to get the temperature all the time. It's normal. I mean, it's not normal because everybody's financially hurting, but the
Yeah.
day-to-day experience is back to the same. I think right now we can't have alcohol in restaurants. I can't remember, but other than that, you can get takeaway alcohol. That's the only thing. And like last year in April, there was one month where you could not buy any alcohol because they knew that everyone was going to touch each other if they got drunk. It's just like you can't social distance and drink. It's not, at least in
Yeah, it
Thailand,
doesn't work.
you can't do that. So, yeah.
Wow.
So Dave Bindra asks, what's the most challenging stone you've had to cut, or what's the biggest pain in your ass stone?
um, so yeah, I don't know. It comes down to like what makes it stressful, right? I had like 7 years ago, I came up with this. I always come up with rules every year about what I'm gonna do with my business. And when I came to the point where I was like not doing commission work anymore, it was like already a couple of years of that. And I've been telling everybody, no, I won't recut shit for you. And no, 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 no. And then I'm starting to work with like bigger and bigger jewelers. I fucking had a meeting with like really important jeweler and just nonchalantly hands me a fucking 90 carat topaz and is like, will you recut this for me? It's like a shitty, like brown fucking, and my brain was like, don't say no, right? I just wanted to be like, no. But I just took it from him, like, okay. So, I mean, polishing a big ass topaz is not fun, right? So, yeah, I took it and then literally did it. I just fucking sent it to him. And he was like, oh, that's awesome. How much? I was like, it's free, right? Just give it to him. Fuck it. But working on that thing, man, I was like, don't break it. You know what I mean? Like, don't fuck it up.
Yeah.
Don't fucking butcher it. give him something he likes. And it was a round. Like, how many different ways can I make a round look interesting? You know what I mean? It was just such a nightmare.
Yeah.
And then he gets it, they set it, the client fucking dropped it on the ground after she had it. So then they took it out and I had to fucking repair it.
Oh, man.
So yeah. You know, I don't know. I don't get stressed at the process, like the technical process anymore, really. Like I'll get sort of like anxiety about it before I get into it. But once I get polishing and I get moving, it's relaxing.
Yeah.
So I don't stress about that anymore. But yeah, like stressful stones, that was one of them, because it was going against my own ethics at the time on recutting things. And it was like this person I didn't want to fucking piss off.
Yeah. And also, like
Huh?
you said, 90 carats, right? So it's also just like a huge
Oh,
time.
dude, the table was like this big on the thing by the time I got to the end of it, and I was just like, I'm not. But it worked out. You know, I polished it. It worked out. He was stoked. I think another good thing to do is, I learned this from, you know, being a child of a foreigner, especially like a Middle Eastern foreigner. They really practiced at like leveraging guilt on people. You know what I mean? So I don't know if you guys out there understand me with that, but you always wait for somebody to fuck up and then you have like the guilt over them. You know what I mean? So I use that in my, not with the fuck up, but I use that in my own practices sometimes. Like, yeah, I gave him the stone for free. Because now it's cool. You know, I put all this work in, you asked me to do it, here it is done. You don't have to pay me anything. I did this because I really wanted to. You know what I mean? I love doing that sort of stuff as well. I think it's good to practice that thing as well.
This is your psychological angle.
Well, no, it's a slow game. That's another thing I learned from the Asians is the fucking slow game.
Yeah.
You know, so just taking your time. And what does that mean? It's just getting to know each other. And, you know, how are you able to leverage negotiating with somebody if you don't know them? You know what I mean? Like when I think about Steve, right? Our friend Steve.
Yeah.
That dude pays so much attention to the people he's doing business with.
Yeah.
To the point where it's almost like creepy. You know what I mean? But he does it deliberately, because how else are you going to be able to talk business with somebody if you don't know who you're talking to?
Yeah, that's true.
You know what I mean? So yeah, that's the most important thing.
Yeah. So again, you know, I think if I was going to rename this talk, it would be like, I don't know, something about people, because that's obviously our
I mean, how is it not though? Like when you're buying rough, like how do you not think about
No,
that?
for sure.
You know,
I
like
mean, you know, my whole journey as a person who wants to write the story of gem cutting, it's like that whole story is just people. It's not about the machines, really. It's not about the stones. It's about, you know, the person who's sitting there and how they did it, whether they're in Sri Lanka on the ground or they're in London with a jam peg. It's just like, you know, who they are is actually the coolest thing. And it's so unknown, you know. Even now, I mean, you can go to Sri Lanka and meet the dude or wherever you're at, and it's just like you have no idea anything about that guy until you sit down with him and spend some time. Or, you know, if I have the luxury of staying someplace for a while, and I usually only do this for research, but like, you know, like if I can go to the Czech Republic and stay there for 2 weeks so that I can spend 2 weeks with these two cutting guys who don't speak English, like I need that much time to get inside their heads and their hearts to like, I want to get their whole story. You know, I want to figure out who they are. Why? Because, you know, anyone in the world who's a gem cutter is a weird person, pretty much.
Yeah.
Like there is no normal gem cutters. So if you meet someone who's a professional gem cutter in a weird, you know, to me, a weird country like the Czech Republic or Sri Lanka or whatever, you're just like, how did you do that? Or why? Why did you do that? It's so in same.
You know, and I'm sure they're looking at you like, why the fuck are you in Slovakia? Like, you
Yeah,
me?
no, exactly.
You know what I mean? Like, what are you doing here, man?
No, but usually though they're pretty excited because you know, gem cutters are like the underdog of the trade. Nobody wants to talk about gem cutters. That's like the secret. You know, you don't want anyone to know who your cutter is. You don't want to talk about it. You don't want to know how much that you paid them or how much you didn't pay them. You know, like we don't talk about that. You know, ethical gems fine, but don't talk about how much we're paying the gem cutter. Like whatever. So
that's the thing, man. You know that there's only a handful of those guys. Whenever like you saw me talking shit to Laura too from Tatum about it, just pricing. You know, if there's literally a few dozen people that if they just got together on the same page about pricing or paid attention to what the rest of the industry was selling for, their lives would be improved. You know what I mean? You'd be able to buy better off. You'd be able to fucking work on bigger shit.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's just it's a mindset thing. You know, it's really interesting to see it from like the hobby cutter's perspective. You should write something on that compared to like an industry perspective. You know what I mean? Somebody like Vincent, I'm sure he's probably a really interesting person to talk about value with and pricing. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, I don't know though, because since his work's all science, he doesn't even think about the value. He's like actually the worst guy. He'll tell you, he's like, I'm the worst guy. I don't buy, I don't sell, I don't know, you know. Okay,
that's what gang members say when they get asked about crimes. You know what I mean?
I'll tell him you said that.
That fucker knows.
Okay, so this is from an audience. Martin Prinsloo says, what species of stones do you prefer above all others to cut, and why? What are your favorites?
I mean, it's like asking a marine biologist, like, what's your favorite species of fucking microbe? You know what I mean? Like, I have no idea. I like working on scarcity. You know, I like really unique examples, and that could be like I cut this like brown, orange, gray color sapphire. It was really interesting.
Yeah.
For itself, you know what I mean? Or as I'm getting more practiced in buying, I get more into blues and purples. Like I'm loving blues and purples. Okay. You know, it's really the species are. I enjoy higher refractions because it shows the work better, I guess, and hardness. And the hardness is vague, you know what I mean? But yeah, I don't know. I like scarcity. I don't want to waste my time on something that there's a lot of.
Yeah. Well, I know you told me before. I heard you say before you don't really like working on tourmalines
because there's a lot of it. I feel like there's more tourmaline than quartz.
Could be. There's a lot of.
You know what I mean? And it's finicky. It has a shit refraction. Looks like plastic when it's cut. Like it's prettier as a crystal.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? All those things. Like when you touch tourmaline, it feels like plastic compared to like when you're touching a sapphire. You know, it's something different in the crystal. It's not like it's the same with aquamarine. I feel the same. Aqua's a much prettier crystal specimen, and it's produced in large amounts when they find it. Same with garnets. But then when you have the scarce variety of garnets, like the grossulars, you know, whenever they hit a new pocket of grossular, there's a lot. Sometimes there's a lot of gem quality, but it's always a different green every time they hit a new pocket along that geological vein they're hitting. So that's why I love grossulars. You know what I mean? I love sapphires from Madagascar because I feel like the crystals are more tightly wound than other locations. You know, they're like a dream to polish for me.
Okay.
So, you know, I don't know. It's a vague question. Like I enjoy my process and I like working on things that are special to me.
Yeah. So David Warren wants to go deeper. He's asking, does your interest in scarcity mean you only want to work on clean stones? Like you don't want to work on included stones?
Yes. David Warren's a guy I sat with back in the day and just fucking was asking me a bunch of inappropriate questions about how I source shit. I forgot where we even sat down together. I think it might have been San Francisco or was it London? It might have been London. I can't even remember where the fuck I met you, bro.
Okay. But
yeah, it does. I mean, if I'm going to take my time working on something, it's going to be clean. Sometimes I'm okay with certain inclusions. That's another sort of vague term, right? An inclusion can be a healed fracture, it could be a feather, it could be another crystal growing inside. You know, I'm cool with little crystals inside as long as they're not detracting.
Yeah. Okay.
It's not really that big of an issue. It's all very particular.
Yeah. Jacob Berger asks, was there one that got away, or do you have a gem that haunts you in your dream?
Shit, I can't even, there's so many I can't even name them. Every stone I sell, I'm always like, God damn it, I should have fucking sold it for more. But yeah, you know, every stone, because I'm working again. I'm being very mindful about where I put my work. I really enjoy each one. I've been sitting on each one for a long time, and even when I'm working on it, you're literally looping it 360 degrees for like, you know, 10 to 16 hours. Like I love this thing at the end of it. You know what I mean? So that's another reason why I don't like putting specifics up. I feel like you're like degrading it. You know what I mean? When I put up photos, it's like I'm gonna wait for the person that really loves it. Then I'll tell you specifics on it. You know, it doesn't matter if you're just shopping for price or trying to figure out how fucking much a garnet of that size costs. Like, go fuck yourself. Go ask somebody else.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So.
Yeah.
I don't know. I feel like it.
If anyone is trying to figure out how much things are worth, they shouldn't ask you anyway. I don't think you're a good barometer for the normal, the normal price of things. Whatever.
I don't tell anybody the price. I don't. That's the last. I'll talk to somebody for like 4.5 months and then I'll tell the price at the end. Like I don't ever. That's the last thing I want to talk about when we're talking about stuff.
It's like you're gonna have to tell
unless I know you're wasting my time.
Yeah, you're gonna have to tell me a childhood story before you get the price of this stone. So let's hear it.
Nah, it's true. Like I'm not gonna. There's no. You know, I mean, you ask any seller how many times you've set a price to somebody and they fucking shut up. Like that's the quickest way to get rid of somebody. That's what I said. I'll tell the price to somebody if I know they're just kicking tires.
Yeah.
And I'll tell them a high price just to get them to shut up.
Yeah.
Because I know that. Like, you ever hear the saying, "Is the fastest way to get rid of an asshole is to loan them money"? the same thing with giving a price. You're
Okay.
like loaning them money.
Okay. So the final question. Really, this is the question for me. They're asking, is this going to go up on YouTube? And then what funny blooper are you going to have to put instead of all the words fucks? I had thought if the timing was opposite and most of the people watching this were in the evening, I was going to make a drinking game out of this and just say every time Jean-Noel says fuck, take a drink, and then see where we're at in 2 hours. But I figured everybody's in the morning, so it's too early.
I have
So
to say, get used to it, man. Like, if that's all you heard during this conversation, you weren't fucking listening. So tell your fucking 9-year-old followers to go fucking watch something else.
yeah, I don't know if is there a censorship on YouTube? I never thought about that. Well, we'll see what happens tomorrow.
Yeah,
Okay, well,
funny.
I think we've gone there and back, Lord of the Rings style. Thank you. It's been a great
Man,
talk.
thank you, bro. It's awesome.
Let me throw up my final screen in case if there by chance is someone in the world that is not following you already. There it is. You can get a hold of him at Top Notch Fasting. If you want to buy something, you can email him, and then he'll give you his phone number.
I really appreciate it, Justin. Thank you for everything, bro.
It's a pleasure. I always like talking to you, and I had to think of my angle before I could get you on here, but I definitely wanted to. You're somebody who's like, we didn't even speak about this, but like somebody who is an American cutter who's not an American cutter, and so this is like a unique perspective that we can document for all ages here on the show, I guess. So yeah, thanks. And thanks, of course, to all the guests who are, asking cool questions and have been coming back and watching webinars for like 1 year now. This is awesome that we're keeping the momentum going.
Man, I think that's great. So I think you got to keep doing these talks with different people, man. And I'm going to send you a list of folks I think you need to get on here too. There's a bunch of dudes I think would be really interesting, and women.
Yeah, for sure. I think now at this point we've had more women than men, which I'm really happy about. So I'm just going to try and keep it balanced like that.
Nice.
I have already like a 2-year long list of people that I plan to interview like once a month for 2
Wow.
years. So, but I'll definitely add some more. I mean, somebody told me the other day, like, dude, you have to talk to Michael Diber. And I was like, oh yeah, duh. I really do need to talk to Michael.
yeah.
Diber. I've never talked to him before, but I've written about him. So it's just like, oh man, I obviously should. But I think
Dude, he's like one of the OGs. He's one of the OGs in that realm. Do you ever hear of a guy named Arthur Lee Anderson?
No.
You got to look that name up. He was before Diver, even maybe even at the same time, but he got into a car accident and then his career sort of fell off after that. But as far as the fantasy cutting, he was like doing stuff that I haven't seen since.
Wow. Okay.
So look up Arthur Lee Anderson.
Okay, I'll check it out.
Look him up.
And so for everybody watching next month, March 14th, it's well, they're all Sundays, but I'm hoping it's going to be a girl from the Czech Republic. We're just trying to figure out if next month's going to work. That will be a cool talk. She did a formal apprenticeship through the Czech cutting system, doing Czech garnets and all the stuff that they do over there. So I'm really hoping that she is available next month. Otherwise, I will resort to my list. But thanks for making a great Valentine's Day talk. I know for you, you just woke up. For me, it's going to put, complicated dreams into my mind tonight about symmetry and proportions. So thanks for that.
Yeah, no worries, man.
Okay, well,
you guys have a happy Valentine's Day.
Yeah, you too. Good luck and stay safe. Be healthy, so then you can come back whenever Bangkok's open again. We can hang out over here.
Man, I'll be there soon, bro.
Okay, cool. Well, catch you later. Thank you again, and see you on the internet somewhere.
See everybody. See you, Marvin.
Okay, see you later. Bye-bye.